We're going to look at how Jesus responded to people that worked with him, but backslid, quotes, that started to have questions, that started to work with him. And because that's the pattern I feel like sometimes we don't need to invent the wheel. Jesus has already, in many cases, Jesus has already shown us what to do. Hebrews 4:15 tells us that there's nothing we are going through he has not gone through. So when in doubt, open your Bible. I really like the gospel because if you systematically study the life of Jesus, you'll find that he has given you a cheat code for how to navigate in many, many things. So let's look at the story of Jesus and Thomas first. I really love this story so much because I have a personal issue with people calling Thomas doubting Thomas. Peter lied. You don't say lying Peter. What is I would deny Peter. Thank you, my sister. We don't say deny, but I feel like we have an issue with people that ask questions. Thomas, I don't think asking questions is worse than lying. But nobody branded Peter. Maybe because Peter became the rock and he has a book. But I feel like there's a bias too. I advocate for all Thomases. I don't think it is fair. Sincerely, because I feel like he asked questions. Jesus was not offended. Why are we? Why did you? The Bible doesn't call him doubting Thomas. So why? No, sincerely, I don't like it because I feel like it's as if we have an irritation, and it can also be cultural depending on where you come from. We just believe asking questions is an insult to the integrity of God, but God is not offended. God is not offended. I don't know why we are. Anyways, let's read the story of Thomas and Jesus. I really like the story. It's very personal to me. So in John 20. Verse 19 to 28. Anybody there should please read it.
At evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut where the disciples were assembled, for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood in the middle and said to them, "Peace be with you." When he had said this, he showed them his hands and his side. Then the disciples were glad when they saw the Lord. So Jesus said to them again, "Peace to you. As the Father has sent me, I also send you." And when he had said this, he breathed on them and said to them, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven. If you retain the sins of any, Now Thomas, called the twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. The other disciple therefore said to him, "We have seen the Lord." So he said to them, "Unless I see in his hands the print of the nails, and put my finger into the print of the nails, and put my hand into his side, I will not." And after 8 days, his disciples were again inside, and Thomas with them. Jesus came, the doors were being shut, and stood in the midst and said, "Peace to you." Then he said to Thomas, "Reach your finger here and look at my hands, and reach your hand here and put it into my side. Do not be unbelieving with you." And Thomas answered and said to him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said to him,
"No, it's okay there. So that because of time. Thank you so much." So what I want to emphasize is that first off, Jesus had resurrected, but he went to see the disciples, but Thomas was not there, and so like a lot of us, he had doubts. I don't even think that's perfect. He didn't have the encounter that the other people had. It's not that surprising. Like, can we cut the guy some slack? Like, it's not that surprising. He wasn't there. He didn't have the encounter. He's like a person. Sincerely, I just feel like if one of the things that even solidifies our faith in God is personal encounters with Him. If you don't have it, it's not so surprising if you have. So that's the first I want to say. He didn't have the encounter they had with Jesus. He had questions. Nothing, no surprises there. And then he now told them, this is the people are saying, sorry, it's going above my head. I don't believe it. Yes, he said he would. First off, nobody had died and predicted not only his death, his resurrection, actually did it, and lived to tell the tale. It's as if it was just a baller over there. I mean, for Thomas, that must have been, wow, this is not the greatest showman. Jesus was the greatest showman before the greatest showman. Because that was pretty dramatic, if we're being honest. And so he wasn't there, so he had questions. And I'm sure the other disciples were like, this one, maybe they even, I don't know, maybe they started calling him doubting Thomas, and we don't even know. They were probably like, this one doesn't believe, he's an unbeliever. But I feel like Peter should have been empathetic because he had lied, right? So anyways, what we see is that the next time Jesus was going to show up, Thomas was with the disciples, which is also a lesson for people that have questions, not for the brothers now that keep, but people that have questions, so keep showing up with the believers. But that's a different point. So Thomas was with the disciples when Jesus came back the second time, right? And what we see is that Jesus didn't get offended. He didn't say, "How dare you? If you were one of the 12." I mean, it was inner, it wasn't part of the 3,000. It was the 12. It wasn't Judas that betrayed Jesus either. Which I feel like Judas too, we should cut into that, but that's another point. It wasn't Judas, He actually, he was part of it. We didn't even hear any negative thing about Thomas like that. And he had questions, and Jesus came, he wasn't offended. And what did Jesus do? He pointed him to his testimony. See, this is what I said will happen, and it has happened. This is the testimony. So see the nails. The testimony is I triumphed over death. And that's what Jesus did. He redirected his attention. He didn't get angry. He didn't say, "How dare you?" He pointed him to the testimony. And that's something that I feel like is a very, very, it is basically a blueprint for dealing with people that have questions. Getting offended does not solve anything. You are not God. If God is not offended, why are you? Do you understand? Like, getting offended, it does not solve anything. Just point them to the direction of the testimonies. Point them into the direction. The testimony Jesus pointed to, the nails that he showed him, that this is what has happened, or this is the experience, this is what has come out, or I said this is going to happen. I'm a promise keeping God. I prophecy fulfilled. It showed him the nail pierced hands. It wasn't Thomas's experience. So it wasn't Thomas that experienced that, it was Jesus's experience. So it doesn't have to be the testimony of the people you are speaking to. It just has to be, I was blind, now I can see. I used to struggle with this, now I don't. I couldn't read my Bible before, now I can. Do you understand? Like, nobody can take you. And that's one thing I really love about the Samaritan woman. She asked, I've never met anybody that Jesus met. John 4. You can open it, there's no time. John 4. I've never met anybody that asks questions like the Samaritan woman, and she still didn't feel disqualified from telling people about Jesus. She just said, I don't know all the razzmatazz. I don't know the theology. I'm not even really a Bible. I've never even really opened my Bible. What I shall know is that this is Jesus. This is my encounter with him. And many people don't. Do you understand? We don't need as much. To be honest, I feel like if we, first off, were not as offended by people that had doubts or people that had questions, that would even be the first thing. And so that's the first thing I wanted to point out. The second story that I really like is the story of John the Baptist. It's a sad story, but I like it because it pushes an important message. It's the story of John the Baptist. There's no time, but it's Matthew 11 verses 2 to 5. John the Baptist, we all know John the Baptist. I mean, talk about the very supernatural human being, supernatural purpose. I mean, Jesus even called him the greatest of the last prophets. Like, what is a greater purpose? It was not just Jeremiah or Isaiah. He was prophesying, he baptized. Like, talk about the encounter. And he still said, "Are you the expected one? Or are you the expected one, or should we wait for another?" Do you understand? That was John. I don't know a higher, as in he was there when God said, "This is my beloved son," and he still had questions. Jesus, when when John was in prison, because life had happened to John. Has life happened to you people before? Life has happened to me, but I'll be like, wait. Hold up. These things I will confess. We need to come. Let's have a discussion. Is this thing true? I feel like, because pain can do that to a person. Pain can really do that to a, regardless of what you think they've experienced. And that's why the only person we should hold to certain esteem is Jesus. Every other person is a human being. And so John sent his own disciples, go and find out, this person, is he really the one, God? Because number one, Jesus did not come with he didn't come and just overthrow the Roman Empire. He didn't come with a cape. He didn't come with a crown. He was very lowly. Isaiah described him as a man of sorrow. That's how Jesus was described. So I can imagine, first of all, on the other angle, John must have been like, this guy doesn't fit what I was expecting. On the other angle, John had experienced so much life. He was in prison, for God's sake. And when John's disciples got to Jesus did not get angry. With everything, you were there when you should know better. That was not Jesus' response. Jesus' response was to tell the disciples, go and tell him what you see. The blind see, the lame walk. I feel that so strongly. And that's one thing I want to emphasize. When people have doubt, point them to the testimonies. The rest is all to God. Point them to the testimonies and stay on the mountain praying for them. That's our only, because all this, and I sense this very strongly. Why? Because it's a very critical way of being our brother's keeper in these last days. Many people are going to come with questions. Maybe this is an announcement. I don't know what it is. Many people are going to come with questions. Many people are going to ask us questions that, in all honesty, you don't have the answer to, because and God will not tell you until you get to heaven. Even for you, there are many things that you yourself, there are many. See me too, as I am. Let just leave me, because if you poke this place, I'll be like, it's a touchy spot. I'm serious. And people are going to come with tougher ones that say, oh yeah, explain these things. I'll be like, I don't know. What I know is I was blind, now I can see. I could not hear God before, now I can't hear God. I didn't understand this in the Bible, now I have eyes that see. Do you understand? Like, I prayed for this person they got. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to sound like the next person. And that's just one thing I want to emphasize. Sharing our testimonies is going to be a very, very important weapon in these last days. I don't even believe our testimony. I believe our testimonies are a means of evangelism. I believe God gives us testimonies so that we can draw more people. It's not going to give you, certainly just so that you can go. How can you to think about it? The God of the universe, He blessed you so that you can stunt on social media, come off it. It has to be much bigger than that, sincerely. And so that's one thing. Except you have a restraint in your spirit for one reason or the other, don't tell anybody. Then your testimonies are supposed to be a tool that you use to help people overcome. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony, sincerely. And so that's one critical way of being our brother's keeper. When people have doubts, don't form answers that you don't know. Just do what Jesus did. Point them to the testimonies. Point them to the things you have seen, the things you have heard, the things that you have encountered. Sincerely.